The colony ship Eternal Dawn moved through space like a small city made of metal and glass. Inside its long corridors and wide chambers, thousands of beings from different worlds lived together. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had skin that changed colors. Among them walked humans, the newest members of the great Galactic Union. Hana loved the ship. The 8-year-old girl thought it was magical how so many different creatures could live in one place. She loved learning about the other species, loved asking questions, loved making drawings of all the strange and beautiful aliens she met. Her dark eyes sparkled when she talked about the different worlds, the different ways of living. Her brother Taiyang was different. At 10 years old, he was quiet and careful. He watched everything. While Hannah made friends easily, Taiyang stayed back and studied people. He noticed things others missed. He saw how some aliens looked at humans with cold eyes. He heard the whispers in the corridors. Their mother Yuna worked as a diplomat. She spent her days in meetings with alien ambassadors, trying to make humans accepted in the Union. Their father Jiho fixed the ship's engines and power systems. He came home tired every night, his hands stained with grease and his mind full of technical problems. The family lived in the human quarter of the ship, but the children went to the multi-species education center. This was where young beings from all races learned together. The Union believed this would create understanding between species. Hannah believed it too. Taiyang had doubts. On this particular morning, Hannah prepared for her class presentation. She had made a display about Earth's forests. She had pictures of trees, animals, rivers, and mountains. She practiced her speech while Taiyang ate breakfast and watched her. The forests of Earth are home to thousands of species, Hannah said, holding up her display. Humans live near forests for millions of years. We learned from them. We protected them. That's good, Taiyang said. But he saw the bruise on her arm, barely visible under her sleeve. Hannah, did someone hurt you? She pulled her sleeve down quickly. I just bumped into something. Taiyang's eyes narrowed. His sister wasn't clumsy. Someone had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. But before he could ask more questions, their mother called them to hurry. They would be late. The education center was a large dome filled with light. Different sections were designed for different species. Some areas had water for aquatic beings. Some had higher gravity for heavy worlders. The human section looked like a normal classroom from Earth. Hannah's class had 20 students. 5 were human. The others came from various species. The teacher was a Velthian, a wise being with silver skin and 3 eyes. She tried to be fair to everyone. When Hannah's turn came to present, she walked to the front with her display. She smiled nervously. Today I want to share about Earth's forests, she began. Before she could continue, a loud voice interrupted. Earth, the mud planet where pinkskins crawl. Laughter erupted from the back. Vexter stood up. He was a crow, a species that looked like walking lizards covered in thick scales and sharp ridges. His father was an important ambassador. Vexter knew he could do almost anything without real punishment. Sit down, Vexter, the teacher said firmly. Why? I want to hear about the weak humans and their soft world. More laughter. His 2 friends, Silra and Toxin, joined in. They always did whatever Vexter wanted. Hannah's face turned red, but she continued. She talked about the trees, about the animals. She tried to ignore the mocking sounds from the back. When she finished, the teacher thanked her and told her it was excellent work. During break time, Hannah went to the recreation area. She sat alone, looking at her display. She had worked so hard on it. Why did Vexter have to be so mean? Suddenly, her display was ripped from her hands. Vexter held it high above his head. Look at the Pinkskin's toy. Give it back. Hannah jumped, trying to reach it. She was small, even for a human child, and Vexter was much bigger. You want it? Fetch! He threw it across the room. It hit the wall and broke into pieces. Hannah ran to her broken project. Tears filled her eyes. She had spent weeks on this. Weeks of careful work, of painting and research, all destroyed in seconds. "Ah, the cub is crying," Silra said. Many alien species called human children cubs, because humans seem so weak and helpless compared to other young beings. Taiyang had been studying in another section when he heard the commotion. He ran to the recreation area and saw his sister on the floor, surrounded by broken pieces of her project. He saw Vexter and his gang laughing. "Hannah, are you okay?" He helped her up. "Your sister needs to learn her place," Vexter said. "Humans have no claws, no fangs, no armor. You're prey animals pretending to be equals." Taiyang looked at Vexter. His face showed no emotion, but his hands clenched into fists. "Leave my sister alone. Or what, little cub? You'll cry too?" Vexter pushed Taiyang's shoulder. The teacher arrived then, breaking up the confrontation. She scolded Vexter, but the damage was done. Hannah's project was destroyed, and everyone had seen that humans could be hurt with no real consequences. That evening, Yuna tried to comfort Hannah. "I'll speak to the administrators tomorrow. This behavior is unacceptable." But Jiho shook his head. "They won't do anything. Vexter's father has too much power. We're still new to the Union. We have to be careful." "So we do nothing while our daughter is bullied?" Yuna's voice rose. "I didn't say that. But we have to be smart about this." Taiyang listened to his parents argue. He sat in his room later, unable to sleep. He accessed the ship's database with his study tablet. He looked up information about the Krell, about their biology, their culture, their weaknesses. The screen's pale light reflected in his eyes as he read. Humans might be new to space. They might lack natural weapons. But humans had something else. Humans had survived on Earth by being smart, by learning, by adapting. And by remembering that prey animals don't reach the top of the food chain. Over the next few days, the bullying continued. Vexter and his gang found Hannah in corridors. They pushed her. They took her food during meals. They whispered threats when teachers couldn't hear. Hannah became quieter. She stopped smiling. The light in her eyes dimmed. She made excuses not to go to class. She had nightmares. Taeyang watched it all. He saw his parents try the proper channels. He saw the administrators make excuses. He saw Ambassador Krextol, Vexter's father, dismiss his mother's complaints with barely hidden contempt. "Cubs must establish hierarchy," the ambassador said. "This is natural. Your species must adapt to our ways." That night, Taiyang heard Hannah crying in her room. He stood outside her door, his hand on the frame, listening to his sister's pain. Something cold settled in his chest. Something old. Something that remembered when humans weren't civilized members of a galactic community. Something that remembered when humans were just clever apes, who learned to hunt things bigger and stronger than themselves. The galaxy thought humans were weak. They thought human children were harmless cubs. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The days became harder for Hannah. Every morning she woke up with fear in her stomach. Every time she walked through the ship's corridors, she looked over her shoulder. Vexter and his gang were always somewhere nearby, waiting. They learned her schedule. They knew when she would be alone. They knew which corridors had fewer cameras. They knew exactly how far they could go before adults would notice. Taiyang tried to stay close to his sister, but they had different class schedules. He couldn't protect her every moment. It ate at him. During lessons, his mind wandered. He thought about Hannah. He thought about the way she flinched now when anyone approached her. One afternoon, Hannah walked to the library section. She loved reading about different worlds, about their plants and animals. The library was usually quiet and safe. She found a corner and opened a book about ocean worlds. She didn't notice Vexter enter until it was too late. He grabbed the book from her hands and threw it across the room. Silra blocked the exit. Toxin stood watch. "Please," Hana whispered. "I didn't do anything to you." "You exist," Vexter said. "That's enough. Your kind doesn't belong here. No claws, no strength. Weak bones that break so easily." He pushed her against the bookshelf. Hard. Books fell around her. Pain shot through her back. "Stop!" she cried out. "Or what? You'll tell your parents? We've seen how well that works." He laughed. "The humans complain and complain, but nothing happens. Because your species doesn't matter. You're just prey pretending to be people." He pushed her again. She fell to the floor. He put his foot on her chest, not enough to really hurt her, but enough to show his power. To show she was helpless. "Remember this feeling, cub. Remember your place." A librarian finally arrived, drawn by the noise. Vexter and his gang left quickly, laughing among themselves. The librarian helped Hana up and asked if she was okay. Hana nodded, lying. She wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. That evening, Yuna went to Ambassador Krextol's quarters. She had requested a formal meeting. She brought documentation of every incident. She had witness statements from other students. She had medical scans showing Hana's bruises. The ambassador's quarters were large and decorated with krell art, sharp angles, and aggressive symbols. Krextol sat on a raised platform, looking down at Yuna. "Ambassador, your son has repeatedly attacked my daughter. I have proof. I'm asking for your help to stop this." Krextol examined the documents without interest. Cubs establish dominance hierarchy. This is natural behavior among young beings. Perhaps if your daughter showed proper submission, the conflict would end. Submission? She's 8 years old. Then she should learn faster. Weakness invites challenge. This is how young ones learn their place in society. "Your son nearly broke her ribs." Nearly, but didn't. He showed restraint. Krextol returned the documents. "Your species is too soft, too emotional. Perhaps space life isn't suitable for humans." Yuna's hand shook with anger. "I will take this to the ship's captain. Do what you must. But remember, humans are new here. My species has been in the Union for 3,000 years. Who do you think they will believe?" Yuna left the meeting shaking. She had failed. The system had failed. Her daughter was suffering, and the people with power didn't care. When she returned home, she found Jiho trying to comfort Hana. Their daughter sat curled on the couch, small and frightened. Taiyang sat nearby, his face blank but his eyes burning. "What did he say?" Jiho asked. Yuna shook her head. She didn't want to repeat it in front of the children. But Taiyang understood. His mother's expression told him everything. No help was coming. The adults had failed. The next day was the field trip. All students were going to the hydroponics bay, the section where the ship grew food. It was a massive area filled with plants from dozens of worlds. Water systems, soil beds, artificial sunlight. The teacher thought it would be educational. Hana didn't want to go, but her mother insisted. Maybe being around other students would help. Maybe Vexter would behave with teachers present. The hydroponics bay was beautiful. Plants of every color grew in organized sections. The air smelled of earth and growing things. Hana felt a little better seeing the green plants. It reminded her of the earth forests she loved. The class split into smaller groups to explore different sections. Hana tried to stay near the teacher, but the groups kept moving. Before she knew it, she was separated. She walked through tall plants, looking for her group. That's when hands grabbed her. Vexter, Silra, and Toxin pulled her into a restricted area. It was a maintenance section where workers accessed the water systems. "No one can hear you here," Vexter said. "The water pumps are too loud." Hannah tried to scream, but Silra covered her mouth. They dragged her to a large water retention tank. It was a deep pool used to store and recycle water for the plants. "You know what I think?" Vexter said. "I think humans need to learn their lesson. A real lesson." They pushed her toward the tank's edge. Hannah struggled, but she was so much smaller than them. So much weaker. "Let's see how long a human cub can hold her breath," Vexter said. They pushed her into the water. She went under. Cold water filled her nose and mouth. She fought to surface, but Vexter held her head down. She couldn't breathe. Her lungs burned. Panic filled every part of her body. They pulled her up. She gasped for air, coughing and crying. "Had enough?" Vexter asked. Before she could answer, they pushed her under again. Longer this time. The world became dark and distant. She couldn't fight anymore. Her body stopped struggling. A maintenance worker found them. He had heard something over the pump noise and came to investigate. He pulled Hannah from the water and started emergency breathing procedures. He called for medical help and security. Hannah coughed up water. Her eyes were closed. She breathed, barely. The medical team arrived quickly. They took her to the ship's hospital. Vexter and his gang disappeared in the confusion. By the time security tried to question them, their stories were ready. They were just playing. It was an accident. The human girl fell in and they tried to help. Taiyang was in class when he got the message. His sister was in the hospital. Critical condition. He ran through the corridors, his heart pounding. When he arrived, he found his parents in the waiting room. His mother was crying. His father looked like he'd aged 10 years. "Is she—" Taiyang couldn't finish the question. "She's alive," Jiho said. "But she almost drowned." If that worker had been 1 minute later, they let Taiyang see her. Hannah lay in the medical bed, connected to machines. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was assisted by technology. She looked so small in that big bed. Taiyang took her hand. It was cold. He sat there for hours, just holding her hand. His parents talked to doctors. They talked to security. They talked to ship administrators. Everyone said they were so sorry this happened. Everyone promised investigations. Everyone said the right words. But Taiyang heard what they didn't say. He heard it in the pauses, in the way security officers looked uncomfortable. Nothing would really happen. Vexter's father was too important. Humans were too new. The system would protect the powerful, not the innocent. 3 days later, Hannah woke up. She opened her eyes and looked around in terror. She didn't speak. When anyone approached her, she curled into a ball. She had nightmares, even while awake. The doctors said it was trauma. She needed time. Taeyang sat with her every day. He watched his sister, who had been so bright and happy, become a frightened shadow. He watched his parents try to smile for her while they broke inside. And something in Taiyang changed. The last piece of innocence, the last bit of childhood died. He became something else. Something cold and patient and absolutely certain. The adults couldn't protect Hannah. The system wouldn't protect her. So Taiyang would. In the only way left to him, he would teach the galaxy what happens when you hurt a human's family. Taiyang stopped going to classes. The teacher sent messages to his parents, but Yuna and Jiho were too focused on Hannah to notice. Their daughter still hadn't spoken. She barely ate. She woke up screaming every night, reliving the moment when water filled her lungs. While his parents stayed at the hospital, Taiyang roamed the ship. He spent hours in the public database terminals. He studied. He learned. He planned. First, he researched the Krell. Their bodies were covered in thick scales that made them hard to hurt. They had claws on their hands and feet. Their bones were denser than human bones. In a fair fight, a Krell would always beat a human, but Taiyang wasn't interested in fair fights. He read about Krell biology in detail. He learned they had a decentralized nervous system. Pain didn't stop them the way it stopped humans. But they had one weak spot. On top of their heads grew a crest, a ridge of sensitive flesh that controlled their primary senses. Damage the crest, and a Krell became disoriented and helpless. Next, he studied Sora as species. They were called the Vesh. They looked like tall, thin beings with smooth gray skin. Their eyes were small and weak. They relied on echolocation to see the world, making clicking sounds and hearing the echoes. In silence, they were nearly blind. Toxin species, the Drawl, were ambush predators. They were fast and strong in short bursts, but they had poor endurance. They couldn't run for long. Their bodies overheated quickly. Taiyang made notes on everything. He created files on his personal tablet. He memorized the information until he could recite it in his sleep. Then he studied human biology. His own species. What he learned surprised him. Humans were the only species on Earth that could run for hours without stopping. They sweated to cool down while other animals had to pant. Ancient human hunters would chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. This was called persistence hunting. Humans had incredible endurance. Humans could climb where other predators couldn't follow. Humans could throw objects with precision that no other animal matched. Humans had hands that could grip and manipulate tools, and humans were one of the few species on Earth that hunted other humans. They had thousands of years of experience killing their own kind. They had invented weapons not just for hunting animals, but for warfare, for murder, for revenge. The galaxy called humans weak because they didn't have claws or fangs or armor. But humans had something better. They had intelligence. They had patience. They had the ability to become whatever they needed to be to survive. Taeyang, read about human history. The wars, the violence, the genocides, the capacity for cruelty that humans tried to forget now that they lived in space. But it was still there, buried in their genes, waiting. He wasn't looking for permission. He wasn't looking for justice through the system. The system had failed. Now he would use older methods. Methods from Earth's violent past. Next, Taiyang scouted locations on the ship. He needed a place with minimal surveillance. A place where he could control the environment. A place where screams wouldn't be heard over machinery. He found it in the maintenance sections. The ship was always being repaired somewhere. There was a section undergoing work on the environmental systems. It was scheduled to be offline for 2 weeks. No workers at night. Few cameras. Lots of equipment and tools. He visited the section during his wandering. He memorized the layout. He noted where the lights were, where the exits were, where someone could hide, where someone could be trapped. Then he gathered equipment. His father was an engineer. Their quarters had tools, safety gear. Nothing obviously dangerous, but in the right hands, anything could become a weapon. He took a plasma cutter, the kind used for precise repairs. He took a hydraulic clamp used for holding metal pieces together. He took a crowbar. He took work gloves and boots with good treads. He took a maintenance uniform that was too big for him, but would hide his identity on cameras. He hid everything in a storage locker near the maintenance section. He was careful. He planned every step. Finally, he needed to get Vexter and his gang to come to the location. He needed Bait.Taeyang created an anonymous account on the ship's communication network. He spent days making it look real, filling it with fake history. Then he sent a message to Vexter's personal communicator. The message read, "You were right about me. I'm weak. I want to learn my place. Come to maintenance section 7 tonight at 22 o'clock hours. I'll submit properly. Please don't hurt my sister anymore. It sounded pathetic. Defeated. Exactly what Vexter would expect from a broken human cub. Taiyang knew Vexter would bring his friends. Bullies always traveled in groups. They felt brave together. They would come expecting entertainment, expecting to humiliate another human. They wouldn't expect a trap. The day arrived. Taiyang ate dinner with his parents, though Hannah still stayed in the hospital. His mother looked exhausted. His father looked angry and helpless. They talked about moving to a different part of the ship, about requesting a transfer to another colony ship, about anything except the fact that they couldn't protect their daughter. Taiyang listened and nodded. He didn't tell them about his plan. They would try to stop him. They still believed in the system, even though it had failed them. After dinner, he told them he was going to bed early. He was tired. They believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was just a 10-year-old boy. A child died at 21 o'clock hours. Taiyang left his quarters wearing dark clothes. He moved through the corridors carefully, avoiding cameras when he could. When he couldn't avoid them, he walked normally. Just another resident going somewhere. He reached the maintenance section and entered. It was dark inside. The lights were offline for repairs. Emergency lights provided dim illumination. Machinery hummed and hissed. The air smelled of metal and chemicals. Taeyang changed into the maintenance uniform. He put on the work gloves and boots. He retrieved his tools from the storage locker. The plasma cutter was light in his hands. The crowbar was heavy and solid. He had 2 hours before they arrived. He used the time to prepare the space. He disabled some of the emergency lights, creating patches of darkness. He moved equipment to create obstacles, places to hide, paths to chase someone down. He positioned himself near loud machinery that would mask sounds. He tested escape routes. He blocked 2 of the 3 exits from inside, using equipment and welding them shut with the plasma cutter. Only one way out remained. The way he controlled Dot at 21:45, he was ready. He found a hiding spot near the entrance and waited. His heart beat steadily. His breathing was calm. He felt no fear, no anger, just cold certainty. This was going to happen. It had to happen. Someone had to protect Hannah. Someone had to show the galaxy that humans weren't preyed on at 22:03. He heard voices approaching. The door opened. 3 figures entered the dark maintenance section. "This place smells disgusting," Silra complained. "Where's the human cub?" Toxin asked, looking around. Vexter laughed. "Probably hiding. Too scared to face us. Come out, little human. Time to learn your place." Taiyang watched them from his hiding spot. They walked deeper into the section, calling out, mocking him. They thought they were the predators. They thought this was their game. They were wrong. Taiyang's hand tightened on the plasma cutter. He took a slow breath. In ancient times, human hunters would track prey for days, learning their habits, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tonight, the hunt would be much shorter, but it would be just as deadly. He stepped out of the shadows. "I'm here," he said quietly. The 3 turned to face him. In the dim light, they saw a small human boy wearing work clothes too big for him, holding tools. They saw prey. Taiyang saw targets. "Let's begin," he said, and the lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed the maintenance section. The only sound was the humming and hissing of machines. Vexter, Silra, and Toxin stood frozen, suddenly uncertain. What happened? Toxin growled. "The lights," Silra said, his voice nervous. Without light, his echolocation worked, but not perfectly. Too much machinery. Too many echoes. Too much noise. "It's just a power failure," Vexter said. trying to sound confident. The human cub probably got scared and ran. Let's find him and teach him a real lesson. They moved deeper into the section, staying close together. That was their first mistake. Prey animals stayed in groups for safety. Predators separated their prey. A sound came from the left. Footsteps running. Toxin's hunting instincts took over. He was a draw, bred for the chase. He sprinted after the sound, faster than his companions could follow. "Toxin, wait!" Vexter called, but Toxin was already gone, running through the dark maintenance section. He was fast. So fast. He could catch any prey in a straight sprint. His claws scraped on metal floors. His breathing came in excited bursts. He saw a shadow ahead. Small, human-sized. Running away from him, the chase lasted 3 minutes. The shadow led him through twisting paths between machinery, over pipes, around corners. Toxin's powerful legs drove him forward. He was gaining. Almost there. Almost caught. Then his legs gave out. Toxin stumbled and fell. His chest heaved. His body was overheating. Drawl could sprint fast, but not for long. 3 minutes of chasing in a warm maintenance section was too much. He needed to rest, to cool down. A sound came from above. Toxin looked up just in time to see a small figure drop from where he'd been climbing on the pipes. Humans were good climbers. Most species weren't. The hydraulic clamp came down on Toxin's leg. The tool was designed to hold metal pieces together with thousands of pounds of pressure. On flesh and bone, the result was immediate. The snap echoed through the section. Toxin screamed. His leg bent at an angle legs shouldn't bend. He tried to get up, tried to fight, but the pain was too much, even for a drawl. Taiyang stood over him in the dark. He held the crowbar now. His face showed nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just cold purpose. "You held my sister underwater," Taiyang said quietly. "You listened to her drown." The crowbar came down. Once, twice, 3 times. Toxin stopped moving. Meanwhile, Silra and Vexter heard the scream. They ran toward it, but the maintenance section was a maze. In the dark, with machinery humming, Silra's echolocation was useless. Every sound bounced off metal walls. Every echo was distorted. "Toxin!" Vexter shouted. No answer. They slowed down. For the first time, real fear touched them. Something was wrong. This wasn't supposed to happen. They were the strong ones. Humans were weak. "We need to leave," Silra said. "Something's wrong here." They turned to go back to the entrance. But which way was the entrance? In the dark, every direction looked the same dot. Then they heard it. A sound cutting through the machinery noise. Regular, steady. Footsteps. Not running. Walking. Getting closer. "Who's there?" Vexter demanded, trying to sound brave. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a voice from the darkness. "My name is Taiyang. I'm Hannah's brother. The human cub?" Vexter's confidence returned a bit. "You think you can threaten us?" "You're just a sound in the darkness." Machinery grinding to life. The noise was deafening. Silra screamed and covered his ears. His echolocation was completely overwhelmed. He was effectively blind. Something moved in the noise. Fast. Precise. The crowbar caught Silra in the side of the head. The Vesh had thin skulls. They evolved on a low-gravity world. They weren't built for impacts. Silra collapsed. He didn't get up. Vexter was alone now. He couldn't see. His friends were gone. And somewhere in the darkness, a human child was hunting him. "This is impossible," Vexter said to himself. Humans are prey. They're weak. They have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. Taiyang's voice came from somewhere close. That's what you always said. You're right. We don't have natural weapons. We make them instead. A light flared. The plasma cutter activated. In its blue-white glow, Vexter saw Taiyang standing a few feet away. The boy's face was spattered with dark blood. His eyes were empty of everything except purpose. You held her head underwater, Taiyang said. You listened to her choke and drown, and you laughed. Vexter charged. He was bigger, stronger. His scales were armor. His claws were weapons. One strike would end this. One hit would kill the human cub, but Taiyang was already moving. Humans had reflexes designed for tool use, for precision, for throwing and dodging. He dropped low, rolling under Vexter's charge. The plasma cutter dragged across the Krull's leg as he passed. Vexter roared in pain. The heat of the plasma cutter burned through his scales. But his decentralized nervous system kept him fighting. Pain wasn't enough to stop a Krull. He spun around, searching for the human. There. Taiyang stood near the machinery, holding the plasma cutter. You can't win, Vexter said. I'm stronger. I'm bigger. I'll tear you apart. Probably, Taiyang agreed. In a fair fight, you'd win. He moved suddenly, hitting a control panel. The machinery changed its rhythm. A maintenance arm swung out, forcing Vexter to dodge. Another pipe vented steam, creating a wall between them. But this isn't a fair fight, Taiyang continued. His voice was calm. Too calm, this is a hunt. And humans are very good at hunting. For the next 10 minutes, Taiyang led Vexter through the maintenance section. Never fighting directly. Always moving. Always making the Krull chase him. Using the environment. Using tools. Using every advantage. Vexter was strong, but Taiyang was smart. Vexter was powerful, but Taiyang knew the territory. Vexter was a warrior, but Taiyang was a hunter. Slowly, Vexter accumulated damage. Burns from the plasma cutter. Cuts from sharp edges. Bruises from impacts. Nothing fatal, but everything adding up. He was getting tired. Getting slow. Finally, Taiyang led him to a corner. A dead end. Vexter realized too late that he'd been herded. Like ancient human hunters herded prey animals into killing zones. Enough! Vexter charged one last time. Taiyang didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped forward. The plasma cutter, still active, went straight for Vexter's crest. The Krull's scream was inhuman. His crest was his primary sensory organ. Damage to it brought agony even his decentralized nervous system couldn't ignore. He fell to his knees. Taiyang stood over him. The plasma cutter's light illuminated both their faces, the hunter and the prey. Except the roles were reversed now. My sister is 8 years old, Taiyang said. She loved learning about different species. She wanted to be friends with everyone. She was kind and gentle and good. He pressed the plasma cutter closer. Not killing. Not yet. Just hurting. You took that away from her. You made her afraid. You nearly killed her. And you laughed about it. Please, Vexter begged. The proud Krull youth was crying now. Please stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. The next few minutes were not quick. They were not clean. Taiyang made sure of that. He wanted Vexter to understand what he'd done, to feel what Hannah felt. The fear, the pain, the helplessness. When security finally arrived, alerted by the emergency sensors that detected the fight, they found a scene that would haunt them forever. Toxin and Silra were dead. Their bodies lay in pools of alien blood. Vexter was alive, but barely. His crest was destroyed. Burns and cuts covered his body. He would live, but he would never be the same. And standing in the middle of it all was Taiyang, a 10-year-old human boy, covered in blood, holding a plasma cutter. his expression completely empty. When the security officers pointed their weapons at him, he dropped the plasma cutter. He raised his hands. "I surrender," he said calmly. The officers looked at each other in shock. This was a child. A human child. Children didn't do this. Cubs didn't do this. But Taiyang wasn't a cub. He was a human. And humans were never prey animals. They were predators who learned to pretend to be civilized. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson. The news spread through the eternal dawn like fire. A human child had killed 2 alien youths and nearly killed a third. The story grew with each telling. Some said it was unprovoked. Some said the human went mad. Some said it proved humans were too dangerous for Space. Ambassador Krextal demanded immediate action. His son lay in the medical bay, permanently damaged. He wanted the human child executed. He wanted the family expelled from the ship. He wanted humanity punished. Other ambassadors agreed. How could they trust a species whose children could do such things? If human young were this violent, what about human adults? Maybe bringing humans into the Galactic Union had been a mistake. Taiyang sat in a holding cell. He hadn't spoken since surrendering. He ate when given food. He slept when tired. He showed no emotion. Psychologists tried to talk to him. He answered their questions honestly, but without feeling. "Why did you do it?" they asked. "They hurt my sister," he said simply. "Did you plan this?" "Yes." "Do you regret it?" He thought about this for a long time. "I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it." His parents visited him every day. His mother cried. His father looked lost. They didn't understand how their son could do such things. They'd raised him to be peaceful, to follow rules, to trust the system. "I'm sorry," Taiyang told them. But the system failed. Someone had to protect Hannah. A formal tribunal was scheduled. Representatives from all major species would attend. The case would set precedent for how human behavior was judged in the Union. The ship's captain, a Valthian named Rickson, insisted on a thorough investigation first. He'd worked with humans for years. He knew they weren't simply violent animals. Something had led to this. His security team reviewed everything. They found the medical records showing Hannah's injuries. They found security footage of the bullying incidents. They found records of Yuna's complaints, all dismissed or ignored. They found the report of Hannah's near-drowning. They also found something else. In Vexther's personal files were messages to friends, bragging about tormenting the human girl, laughing about making her cry, discussing how far they could go before anyone stopped them. One message read, "The pinkskins are so weak. We can do whatever we want. Father says humans don't matter anyway." Captain Rickson read these files with growing anger. He'd suspected the truth, but seeing it confirmed made his blood run cold. This wasn't random violence. This was systematic failure to protect the child. The tribunal convened in the ship's main hall. Hundreds attended. Ambassador Krextal sat in the front, demanding justice for his son. Yuna and Jiho sat in the back, looking small and defeated. Taiyang was brought in wearing restraints. He was 10 years old, but walked like someone much older. The weight of what he'd done showed in his posture. The charges were read. 3 counts of assault. 2 counts of murder. Premeditated violence. The prosecutor, a Krell painted Taiyang as a monster. A human predator who attacked innocent youth without cause. This child planned for days, the prosecutor said. He studied his victims. He prepared weapons. He lured them to an isolated area and murdered them. This is not the behavior of a civilized being. This is the behavior of a savage animal. Many in the audience nodded. How could they argue? The facts were clear. Then Yuna stood to speak. She'd been given permission to address the tribunal as a diplomatic representative of humanity. She walked to the front slowly. Her hand shook, but her voice was steady. "You call my son a monster," she began. "You call him a savage. You want him executed for what he did. I understand. What he did was terrible. Taking life is terrible." She paused and looked around the room. "But let me tell you what led to this moment. Let me tell you about my daughter." She showed the tribunal everything. Every incident of bullying. Every medical record. Every complaint she'd filed. Every time she'd been dismissed or ignored. The footage of Hannah being pushed into the water retention tank. The medical scans showing her damaged lungs. "My 8-year-old daughter nearly drowned," Una said. "She was held underwater by the same youth my son killed." When I reported this to Ambassador Krextol, he told me it was Cubs establishing hierarchy. When I went to administrators, they said we must adapt to union ways. She pulled up the messages from Vexter S files. They bragged about it. They knew no one would stop them. Because humans are new here. Because we're seen as weak. Because your system decided my daughter's suffering was acceptable. The room grew quiet. Some ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. "You want to know why my son did this?" Una continued. "Because every adult failed. Every system failed. We asked for help and were told to accept abuse. We followed proper channels and were ignored. My daughter was tortured for weeks and nearly murdered, and you did nothing." She turned to face Ambassador Krextol directly. "You taught your son that humans don't matter, that he could hurt us without consequences. And you were right. There were no consequences. Until my son decided there had to be." Una pulled up another document. Captain Rickson had found it in the Human Integration files. This is Clause 7 of the Human Integration Protocols. It was filed when humanity joined the Union, but apparently no one read it. Let me read it now. She projected the text for everyone to see. "Human juveniles retain adult protective instincts and are capable of lethal force when defending themselves or kin. This is a biological trait from Earth evolution. Humans evolved as pack animals who protect their young with extreme violence. Host species must ensure human children's safety or accept human defensive protocols." The room erupted in shocked conversation. No one had known this was in the protocols. It had been buried in legal documents, ignored as unimportant. "You called humans weak," Una said. "You called our children cubs, like we're prey animals. But humans were never prey. We're a predator species that learned to be civilized. We learned to follow rules and trust systems. But when those systems failed to protect our young, we become what we were for millions of years on Earth." She looked at Taiyang, her son, sitting in restraints. "We become hunters. We become killers. We become whatever we need to be to protect our family." The tribunal debated for hours. Some still demanded Taiyang's execution. Others argued he was provoked beyond reason. The evidence was clear that Hana had been tortured and nearly killed. The evidence was also clear that adults in power had failed to stop it. Finally, Captain Rickson made his judgment. The human child Taiyang is guilty of violence. This cannot be ignored. However, the circumstances show extreme provocation and systematic failure by this ship's administration to protect the victim. Therefore, I rule as follows. He read his verdict carefully. Taiyang will be placed in psychological rehabilitation, not prison. He will receive treatment for trauma. When he is deemed ready, he will serve community service aboard the ship. But he will not be executed or permanently imprisoned. Ambassador Krextol stood in rage. "This is injustice. My son, your son participated in attempted murder," Captain Rickson said coldly. "Your son tortured a child for weeks. Your son held a girl underwater until she nearly died. And you, Ambassador, knew about it and encouraged it. You told the victim's mother it was acceptable behavior." The captain's 3 eyes fixed on the Krell ambassador. "Therefore, you are removed from your position. The Krell government will be notified of your failure. And if your son survives his injuries, he will face trial for attempted murder. The room exploded in noise. Some species supported the decision. Others protested. But the captain's word was final. More importantly, the Union Council issued new protocols that day. Human children are not to be called cubs or treated as prey. Animals bullying of human juveniles is now a Union-level crime species that fail to protect human children forfeit diplomatic immunity. All species must complete education. On human defensive behavior, a new phrase entered galactic language. Never corner a human child. 3 months later, Hana came home from the hospital. She was different now, quieter and more cautious. But she was healing. Therapy helped. Her parents helped. And her brother helped. Taiyang completed his rehabilitation. The therapist said he showed deep remorse for having to kill, but also deep certainty that he'd do it again if his family was threatened. They called it complicated. He'd called it human. One evening, Hana and Taiyang sat together looking at pictures of Earth. She showed him her favorite forests, the places she wanted to visit someday. "I'm sorry you had to do that," she said quietly. "I'm not," he replied. "You're my sister. I'll always protect you." She took his hand, the hand that had killed to save her. "Thank you," she whispered. Aboard the ship, things changed slowly. Other species watched humans differently now. Some with fear, some with respect, all with caution. Humans didn't have claws or fangs or armor. They had something more dangerous. They had love for their families. And they would cross any line, break any rule, become any monster necessary to protect that love. The galaxy learned its lesson in blood. Humans were not prey animals. They were predators who chose to be peaceful. But choice could always be revoked, and human children, those small beings the aliens called cubs, were just as dangerous as their parents when pushed too far. Never forget, humans are peaceful until they aren't.